Okay, I think we're live. Give people a few minutes to join us. I know there's a lot of agents watching, so let's go ahead and share it too. Today we're talking about listings, guys. How to prepare your listing package, what documents you need, also how to present a listing presentation to your potential sellers. So basically everything you need to know as a new agent or as an agent who just wants to maybe sharpen their sword a little bit better on how we do things here. That might give you maybe an insight of how you can improve your process as well. Let me just go ahead and invite a few people. Okay, so we should be just about set. Okay, so I think we're sharing our screen now, so you guys should see exactly what I'm seeing. I'm going to go ahead and make our screen a little bit larger so you guys can partake in what I'm seeing here. All right. So first things first, when you're looking for your listing documents, you're going to log into Drive once again. That's where we have all our files and all our forms for the agents to be able to have everything at their fingertips. So you'd go to Real Estate Forms and then you'd look for your file that says Listing Docs, which is right here. Click on Listing Docs and then you're going to see everything here that you're going to need for your listing package. Okay, we're going to go through each one of these one by one. Okay, so I'll start with the first document you're going to need. First document you see here is your CIS. For those of you who don't know what the CIS is exactly, and who is just, maybe some of you have just had your client sign it and not really explain to them what it means because you don't know exactly what it means yourself. What it means is that in real estate there are 4 types of relationships. One relationship could be the buyer's agent, that if you only represent the buyer, that's what they would be signing, acknowledging that you're only representing their interests as the buyer or as the investor. The second relationship is as a seller's agent, where you're only representing the seller and not the buyer, and only the seller's interest. The other relationship you can have is a disclosed dual agent, which means that in the event that you end up representing both the buyer and the seller, that means that you'd have to be very neutral and not giving away any valuable information to either party. The other relationship here is a transaction broker, and a transaction broker does not really promote the interests of either party and really doesn't represent anyone. So if you want the least liability out of any agency, this is probably the one that your agency would have to sign up as. In our office, we are disclosed dual agents, so make sure you understand that and you explain that to your clients as well. So you would have the seller sign here underneath where it says for sellers and landlords. Here where it says signed, this is where you would have them sign their name. The first spot here where it says name of brokerage, obviously is very self-explanatory. You would put in culture or state. Then you would, underneath here where it has declaration of business relationship, you would put your name, then you would put the name of your brokerage, and then you would be putting in here also that you would be the seller's agent and disclosed dual agent if the opportunity arises. Okay, always make sure you have this one checked off. If you only check off seller's agent only and you end up selling that property yourself or someone from the office sells it, guess what? The CIS is really not the valid CIS you're going to need. And so then obviously you would have to have this dated. Now when you're taking a listing, this document can be dated the same day as the listing. If you meet with them one day and they decide not to list with you that day and they want to meet several other times, you should have them sign this form the first time you speak with them, just letting them know that in the event that they do end up working with you, you'd be working with them as a seller and with the disclosed dual agency clause. But you would want to do this because whenever you partake in speaking to someone about real estate, you're creating an agency, so you should be having them sign this form, okay? Even if they don't want to sign it, that's fine. As long as you leave it with them, you've fulfilled your obligation. Now, the next document we're going to look at is, okay, well, we'll just jump onto this one. It's not in order, but we'll just look at this one. We'll get to the listing agreement a little bit further down the road. This document here states that in the MLS, you are going to leave out the owner's name and leave out the owner's phone number. So what I usually do is I have them initial both of these spots, and then I have them sign here. The reason why we don't do that is because we don't want other agents contacting our clients directly. And in the event that your listing expires, it really makes it that much easier for another agency to contact your client. So make sure that you always have them sign this. This is a document that's kind of, I've only really seen it with the Garden State MLS. I'm sure there's other MLSs that have it as well. Okay, the next document is a document that we've created where it's basically a disclosure that states that they've received a copy of the Attorney General's Memorandum. Okay, the Attorney General's Memorandum obviously states that we can't discriminate, either the office or the seller cannot discriminate for who purchases the property based on any protected class whatsoever. Okay, so since we're leaving that document with them, we really have no proof that we gave it to them unless they sign this document stating that they've received it and acknowledged it. Okay, this is just, I don't know why that's there. If your listing is in the Central Jersey MLS, you'll be filling out this document. This is one of the only MLSs that I believe will not honor the regular MLS listing, Garden State listing. I'm going to jump into the Attorney General's Memorandum next, just because you need to see what it looks like, because we just spoke about the disclosure that dealt directly with this. This is the document that you would be leaving with them. This is the Attorney General's Memorandum. Like I said, this is going to protect your seller against making any wrong decisions based on discrimination, so you definitely want to give them this. Okay. This document here is an informed consent to dual agency. In the event that you end up representing both parties, your seller has to sign this document. Sometimes we have the seller acknowledge it when we first list the property, just so they could understand that in the event we do bring them a buyer, they will be a disclosed dual agency. And then we have them sign it again when we do bring a buyer to them, just so that we have all that extra layer of protection. Okay. So here, basically, all you would need to have to do is fill in the address. This is very self-explanatory. Fill out your name, the name of your company, culture, state. Once again, down here, culture, state, then the address here, then the salesperson's signature here, and then the seller will acknowledge here and date here. Okay, this is the lead paint disclosure. This is a very, very important document. You will not want to miss this, because you could receive hefty fines. I've heard of up to $10,000 for not having lead-based paint disclosures in your file. So this document here, the way it's filled out, where it says property address, obviously you would have to have the property address here. You would have to have them acknowledge these three sections, but the first section says, well, the first section asks them if they know of any presence of lead-based paint in their home. And the options here are that they do have some knowledge of lead paint in their home, and they would have to explain. If they don't have any knowledge, then they would be checking off the second box and then initialing right next to the section. Section B asks, do you have any records or reports available of there being lead paint in your home? First option says, does the seller has no reports or records pertaining to lead paint? And the second one says that the seller has the following reports. And if they do, they would have to explain what they have. I've been doing this for a long time, and I haven't met a seller yet that says they know of lead paint or have reports. I recently have heard one of our agents say that they had a seller with a situation where the city told them they had lead paint in their home. So I asked them to obviously get some information to collaborate that. I mean, just to make sure that we're not just putting out, you know, the obvious answer of no knowledge and no records, because that can get you in trouble if the seller actually does have knowledge. And then here, the last section, they would initial here just acknowledging that if anything changes from the information that they're currently stating right now that they will update this document as soon as they find out any further information. And then they would need to sign here and date here, and then you would need to sign here as the listing agent, where it has the listing agent section. Pretty simple. Okay, so the next document, this is the important document. This is what you're going to need to fill out in order for you to fill out a listing agreement correctly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to download this document. I'm going to open it with DocHub so you guys can see how to fill it out. Okay. So we have our form here. We're going to put in the owners. So here we'll put owner's name. Owner's address would be, let's just say it's 123 Main Street in Anytown, New Jersey. Then we have the owner's phone number, 08 1234 1234. Then the property address, let's just say that they're selling that same property where they live, so they'd be selling 123 Main Street. Okay. And we've got then the listing broker information here. You would be putting in the name of your firm, and then our address. Our office number. I'm not sure how many people still use faxes, but if you wanted to, you can add in the fax number. And then the sale price of your client's home. Now, when you go to a listing appointment, make sure all of this is filled out prior to you showing up, because it looks really bad when you show up with blank documents and then you start filling this out, because it gives your client time to think about what they're doing, and you want to just make sure that you have everything prepared. That way you're in, you're out. The only thing you leave up to discussion in that day is the sales price. So let's just say you agree upon a sales price of $399,000. That would go here. If it's a rental, you would be putting that price here, $3,000, whatever it is that your home is going to be rented for. Next section here is the commencement date. When you start a listing, make sure that you always start it for that day, because if you start it for the future, for tomorrow, if they're meeting with other agents that day, or if they change their mind, they could easily say, you know what, I'm going to cancel that agreement. It's not valid till tomorrow. You want to start it that same day. So let's just say we met with someone today, and it's 9/22/2018, and it's going to expire. Try to do no less than a 6-month listing agreement. Anything less than that doesn't give you ample time to sell a property. So let's just say that you took a 1-year listing, 2019. Next section, number 3, you'd want to put in your information as the agent, name of licensee. Then you want to be, in the next section, you're going to put down what company you work for. Then you're going to check off how you represent that person, and you would always be checking off seller, or landlord's agent, and disclosed dual agent if the opportunity arises. Okay, make sure you're always checking this one off. Now, section 4, we're talking about agency. Okay, we're in New Jersey, from what I'm understanding, we're no longer participating, and I haven't ever seen us participate in a sub-agent relationship. So this, I would always put down not applicable, or no, or X, and then here you'd want to put in your checks. So just say we have a check here, and we're also going to participate. What this means is that we're participating with other brokerages, such as buyer's brokers and transaction brokers. Okay, so we are always participating with those people. Next thing we're going to do is put in a compensation amount. So if we're getting, let's say, a 6% commission, and we're splitting it down the middle with another agency, we would put in 3%. And then in the next section, we would put in how much the administrative fee would be. So let's just say we're subtracting $100. And the same thing would apply down here. And we're subtracting $100. Next, we're going to put in the total real estate commission. Let's say the commission is 6%. That would go here. If it's a rental, the commission would go here. If it's a rental, you're going to either put down how much it is as a monetary amount, or you're going to put down that it's 1 month, or you can put down 10% of the net listing. Of the yearly listing, rental fee. So whatever it is that you agree upon with your client, you can go ahead and put that. Next, key box. Here you're going to check off whether the owner does or does not authorize the listing broker to put a lockbox in the home. So you would check off here, they do or they don't. Okay. Next thing here, you're going to disclose how much money you're paying out to other brokerages. So here you can put in 3%, and then minus goes in here, subtract 100. Okay. Here there's a little subsection where it asks if the property is sold to the tenant of the property that you rented to, if there's going to be a commission paid out to the listing broker, and if so, by what date. I usually don't get involved in this too much because this is obviously something that, you know, is very rarely would happen. But if you wanted to, you can put in here any nominal date. You can put, you know, 30 days, 160 days. You can put whatever you want. Normally here, I just leave this blank. It's not a big deal. Next section you're going to want to fill out, obviously, the agent section, where you would be putting in your name. You put in your ID, your MLS ID. Then you would be putting in your broker's name here. And then you would put in your broker's MLS ID. Now, some agents get confused and they think that their real estate license number has to go here. It's not your license number. It's your MLS broker ID. Okay, that's the ID that you use to log into the MLS. And then you would have signatures both on these two lines. Make sure that you have that executed when you show up to your listing appointment, because you can just leave a copy with the client that same day. And you're supposed to leave a copy with your clients the same day. If you don't, you have to go back, make copies, and send them to your client as soon as possible, immediately. That way they can have a copy of their signed documents. If you really want to be proactive, bring 2 copies, leave one with them, fully executed by your broker and yourself, and leave that with them as soon as they've signed it. Now, here's the most important part. You got to get the owner to sign. If it's a married couple, you got to get them, both of them to sign. If they have partners, make sure that all the partners sign. It's really important because they can call the listing invalid if not everyone signs, okay? The other thing I want to explain to you is that if the listing commencement date and the date that they signed this don't have to match. So let's just say they signed it today, but they don't want the listing to start until next week because they're doing some repairs. You can do that, that's fine, but you would have to make sure that you don't list it before that date, because if you list it before the commencement date, you could get in trouble for doing that, okay? Just make sure of that. Normally they'll start the same day, but you do have 24 hours in which you have to list this property on the MLS once you got a commencement date. So if the commencement date is 9/22, by the next business day, the property has to be up on the MLS. Okay. Next thing I want to cover with you is going to be, okay, the seller's property disclosure form. Okay, a lot of people don't use this, and a lot more people nowadays are starting to use this. I see this a lot more often now. Now, some people don't like using it, and some brokerages don't like using it because it creates a lot of liability for the seller. And that is true, because the seller could say, you know, my furnace and my roof are in great shape, and then the buyer buys the home, and then the next week after owning the home, the boiler goes out. You know, so it could look like the seller was lying. But a lot of people are asking for this, so give this to your seller. Let them go through the whole package. It's about, I believe, like 8 pages, and they should really read every line thoroughly, because it asks about everything of the home. It would ask for the important things like the roof and the electrical, the plumbing, everything that they would like to know, everything that's going to be disclosed in an inspection report anyway, they would like to get the heads up, because that helps them alleviate a lot of concern. So for instance, if the home has, let's say it gets water in the basement and you disclose that, it's not going to be such a shocker when they get a home inspection report and it says you get water in the basement, because it was disclosed already. And if they accepted it when they made their offer, they should be less likely to cancel the transaction if their home inspector tells them that the home gets water. Okay, so that's important. Make sure that this gets signed if you think that may be an issue in the future. So if the seller says, look, I want to sell my house as is, make sure that they fill everything out. That way, when the people do their home inspection, they're not concerned about the repairs that need to be done still. Okay. Next document here. If you're splitting a deal with an agent in the office or from outside the office, always make sure that you sign a referral commission agreement. I've seen it many times where two agents will partner up, or one agent will refer a client to another agent, and one agent will think it's a 50-50 split. The other agent's going to think, oh, you're just referring me the client, it's only 25%. The deal closes, and then everyone starts to hate each other because they had different thoughts about what the commission should be. So if you're ever working with another agent, always make sure you sign a referral commission agreement. If you have a seller, and someone from the office brings you a buyer for that property, if the commission is split unproportionately, so let's just say you're getting a 6% commission from the seller, and you're only giving out 2.5 to another brokerage, and you're keeping 3.5 in-house. If somebody brings you a deal in-house, commissions are always split 50-50 in-house. So if the listing agent charges 6, and the buyer's agent is bringing you a buyer, and the other agent in-house is bringing you a buyer, that commission is going to go 3%, okay? Because in-house, we always split our commissions 50-50. So if the listing is not split up in a 50-50 manner, and the listing agent was giving out a disproportionate amount to the other brokerages, make sure you always get the referral commission agreement signed, so that way later on, the listing agent doesn't say, well, I was under the impression I was getting 3.5 and you're getting 2.5, because that's what I had, put in my listing agreement. That may be fine and dandy, but in-house, we always treat each other fairly. We're always 50-50. Just like if the buyer had, the buyer's agent had a buyer's agreement on their transaction and they were making an additional $5,000 or $10,000 on the transaction, that also gets split 50-50. So it's not just on the listing side, it's also on the buyer side. We're always 50-50 in-house, okay? Make sure that you always are aware of that. So in this case, the referring office, let's just say if it's in-house, would be Culture Estate. The referring agent, let's just say, would be John Smith. Then you would put down the information for the phone number, whatever, right? Then the receiving office would be the agent who's getting the lead or getting the prospect. And that would be, let's say, Paul Bunyan. I'm not sure, you can pick a different name, or you guys can use someone else as a point of reference. And then you would put down their office info, their name and phone number, fax number. I don't know if everybody still uses faxes. And then you put down the customer's name, the property that's being referenced, if it's a listing, the contact information for the person that is being referred over, and exactly how much the commission is going to be as a referral. So, that could be anywhere between 10% to 50%, depending on how you guys break that up. Okay, so always make sure you get this signed and put it in your file. That way there are no questions later on about how much money you should be getting. Okay, next document, very important, showing instructions. For showing instructions, you need this in the file 100%, because there is nothing worse than getting a listing in, getting a folder into the front desk with no showing instructions, because that means we cannot put it into showing time. If we can't put it into showing time, we've got agents calling, asking about a property, and we have no way of figuring out how this home is supposed to be shown. So if you're taking a listing, you always have to put the showing instructions, okay? If you're putting a lockbox on the property, please give us a lockbox info. If there is no lockbox and the owner wants to be present, please give all of the information so we know exactly how to make sure that that home gets shown. Okay, and I believe that's the last document for that. If you're going to take a short sale listing, there is a separate folder here for short sales. We're going to get into that in a second. But before we jump into that, I want to cover MLS forms. Each MLS, I'm sorry, the MLS has different forms for different properties. So if it's a business, it would be this document that you would need to fill out. This is the information about the home. So about the business or about the rental, about the multifamily, about the single family. All the information you need to fill out is this form. So this form has to be signed as well by yourself and also by your broker and by the owner of the property. So whenever you're going to go take a listing, make sure you have the right one with you. Also, you would need to include a change form. So a change form you would use whenever something is going to be changed on that property. I always encourage you guys to make sure that if you go to take a listing, always have the owner sign one of these without a date, because what you can do is, in the event you need to change the price later on, you can ask the owner, hey, listen, can we exercise the change form that we signed earlier on to change the date of the property? Or if the owner says in the future, I'd like to temporarily withdraw my home because I'm doing some repairs, you already have the document signed. It saves you an extra trip later on, or it saves the hassle of having to send them an e-signature document later on. So this is always a good thing to have in file. So for a regular single family, you would just have this portion signed and then put it into your file. And that's really all you would need in order to have that mandated document sent over to the MLS. So the rest of the pages that you see might be missing. These pages are already in your Garden State MLS. So what I mean by that is, whenever you list a property on the Garden State MLS, they're going to make you fill out all the information about the home. So what you're going to do is you're going to print, after you fill that out, you're going to print it out, and excluding page 5, because page 5 you're gonna have here, and you're gonna fill out manually, and you're gonna attach page 1 to 4 to page 5, because if you do it manually and on a computer, it's a huge waste of time. Okay, so as long as you do it once on the computer, you can print that out and affix that to this 5th page. It'll save you a lot of time. All right, so that's those are the MLS forms that you would need. For short sales, there's a few documents here that you're gonna see. The first one is going to be the questions that you should be asking your clients. Okay, if you've never taken a short sale before, these are the questions you need to ask. Then you're also going to have them fill out a 4506T. This is a document that gives the bank the ability to verify that the tax returns you've given them are the same tax returns that you have filed with the IRS. Next is a addendum for the listing, which is disclosing to any potential buyers who are going to make an offer on that home that this home is subject to a bank approval, which means that if they submit an offer that's lower than what the person owes on that home, the seller is not obligated to sell that home unless the bank approves it. Okay, if not, then the seller could be held liable to sell the home if they don't disclose that beforehand. This is a third-party authorization form. What this form is basically a document letting the bank know, the lender know that's going to be doing the short sale, or the servicer know that you have authorization to contact them on behalf of your client. If you have a admin that's doing it for you, make sure you name your admin in here. Always name yourself in case you need to make a call. And then this document needs to be sent into the bank as soon as possible. That way, within 24 or 48 or 72 hours, you're processed, you're in the system, and you can call back and start the ball rolling, okay? Very simple thing to fill out. Make sure it gets filled out on every short sale. Next thing we have is a checklist for you to know exactly what you should be getting from your client in order to do a short sale. You need your last 2 years tax returns. You need the last 30 days pay stubs. You need the last 2 months bank statements at least. Sometimes they ask for 3 months. They need the mortgage statement in order for you to figure out what the loan number is, and you can get an idea of what the balance is on the loan. A signed authorization form, which I just covered. A signed 4506T, which I just showed you earlier. A signed RMA. RMA stands for Request for Mortgage Assistance. Every bank typically tends to have their own. Some banks will tell you to use the uniform one, which is fine. That we can just get on Google. Very simple. It's called a uniform RMA, or Uniform Request for Mortgage Assistance. First one is usually the right one. You also want to get a utility bill from your client, because if they live in a home, a utility bill is going to prove that. And then lastly, you need to get a hardship letter explaining why they fell behind on their mortgage payments. Okay. And that's about it. That's the only other documents you're going to need in the beginning to start a short sale process. All right, so if we don't have any questions about that, let's see if we have anybody watching right now that might have a question. All right, no questions so far. Let's go ahead and show you guys what a listing presentation may look like. So now we're going to go into a different folder where it says listing, let's see, 3D presentations. Okay, we have fully customizable ones here that you guys can present either on a PowerPoint, or you can present them through Google's presentations system. But we're going to cover a generic one today for agents that are going to do a presentation on the fly. So let's just say you get a phone call. Hey, I live down the street and I drove past one of your lawn signs and I want to list my house, but you know, can you guys come over like right now? I'm like, I have to go back to work. And if that's the case, we have a few slides that are generic that anyone in the office can use. So I'm going to cover these with you now, so that way you know how to present a listing presentation. Now, we have other ones that are fully customizable, like I spoke about before, that you can put in the address of the home, pictures of the home from the exterior if you want to prepare. You can also have your bio in there, statistics about the town, statistics about that particular section of town, or particulars about the market in general and how things are moving. But for now, we're just going to cover the generic one, which anyone can use at any given point. I'll go ahead and show you this, okay? Hopefully everybody can see this. Okay, first things first, the first slide you'll see, and I'm going to present this to you guys like if I was presenting one to a client. I would sit with them, obviously, build some rapport, look at the house, ask them important questions such as what's your motivation for selling, how soon do you want to sell the home, can you tell me something about the home that's very personal to you, why did you choose this home, you know, what's special about it, you know, what's the best memory you have in this home. You know, all these things you're asking is building rapport with the client, and it's going to help you sell that house. Because if you have a great story from the seller about the neighbor, you know, who, you know, maybe the neighbor did something great for you, and like it's hard to come across people like this, but you're moving into a community where people care about each other, that's an important story to know. That's an important story to tell. So after I've built my rapport, I'm going to jump into the listing presentation, and I'm going to say, okay, well, now I'm going to tell you about Culture Estate, and we're going to start, you know, why would you want to choose Culture Estate versus any other, you know, agent that you'll meet with today or in the future. So first, maybe we'll jump into marketing. You know, we'll tell them, listen, everyone talks about marketing, and we all know that today modern marketing is mostly based on social media and social media presence. We can show them that our Culture Estate marketing is basically, I would say, top-notch and is really second to none. We can show them on this graph that we are in first position when it comes to a following on Facebook, which is the biggest platform right now for marketing. We're number one. There's really not too many people that are doing as much content and as much curated content as we do. You know, there's a lot of agencies out there that put pictures out of homes and things like that, but we actually do really great marketing for the property. So now we want to show them that we are in number one position for our state. We also want to show them that, and when it comes to an internet approach of marketing the home, we're not just going to list the property. We want to make sure they understand that there is a step-by-step systematic way of getting their home on the market, making sure it's all in the right eyes, making sure that we're leveraging every single agent in the office. We're sharing our social media feeds with each other, and we're really going to make sure that the property gets viewed by the right people. The right way to market a home nowadays is to figure out what is the perfect demographic for this home. Okay. Before, a long time ago, people used to say, you know, the best marketing is newspapers, magazines, those types of things. But guess what? Anybody who goes shopping will pick up a magazine. Doesn't mean they're going to buy a house. It just means that, look, it's a free magazine. I like looking at homes. It doesn't mean I'm in the market. But we can figure out ways of leveraging Instagram and Facebook and different pay-per-click on Google on how we can make your home appeal to the people who are actually going to move. People who are actually interested right now looking at homes. We can pick all of these targeted people, market to them, also by income, by age, all these things, so we know that a $500,000 home gets shown to people who can afford $500,000 homes, and it doesn't get shown to just everyone. So our marketing dollars are not going to go to people who can actually buy this home. So we're going to explain to them our approach on that. We're going to explain to them how this home is obviously going to be on the MLS, but that's not a huge thing. But the MLS is one of the biggest factors in getting your home shown. But putting on the MLS is not just putting on MLS. There's a strategy to listing a home on the MLS. First of all, you have to know what day you're going to put on the MLS, because on certain days, more agents are on MLS because they're searching for their clients for the following weekend. So if you put it up on a Thursday, it's a great day. A Wednesday or Thursday is a great day because you're prepping. And when they see like a home 1 day on the market, 0 days on the market, 2 days on the market, that home is going to be shown a lot. So you want to make sure your strategy is in place. You want to also let them know that if the home merits it, you're also going to do a broker's open, which would give the brokers who are active in that community an ability to come in and look at it before anyone else, which are also going to breed some excitement for the home. You also want to talk to them about your public open house. Your public open house is going to be well put together and not just slapped together at the last minute. You're going to make sure the marketing material is right. You're going to make sure it's advertised on all the sites, and make sure that it's up at least 48 hours beforehand. And you want to make sure that it's also accompanied with a mortgage rep, because if somebody wants to buy the home that day and they don't know exactly what they're qualified for, guess what? You have a mortgage rep on site, and you put the deal together there. You're going to have contracts with you. You're going to have comps with you. You're going to have listings for other homes that are comparable to that home in the area. That way you make sure that, if this one doesn't work out for them, you always have alternatives. So there's good ways to run an open house. We're also going to show them the realtors how many showings or how home is going to have by tracking them. Okay, we have a great proprietary system we use for tracking people who look at the house and for the feedback. Okay, that's also a good point to bring out to them. So we want to show them also that if they have any thoughts about selling the home by themselves, which a lot of our listing appointments may be, for sale by owners, or the people may say, why should I choose you and not just try to sell the home myself? I can pay $250, $500 flat fee and get it listed on the MLS. Same thing you can do. Well, the numbers don't lie. Like if you sell the home by yourself, you do sell the home for less money. Statistics say it's anywhere between 11% to as high as it could be 15%. A person can lose if they don't list with a broker. So these are not numbers that we came up with. These are actually statistics that are done every year by national companies, such as the National Association of Realtors. They spend a lot of money on these polls to make sure that they know what they're talking about. So even if they were to give us a 6% commission, they're still way ahead. They're still going to save at least 5 to 10% on listing it by themselves. So you definitely want to make sure that they understand that this is definitely not something they want to think about handling on their own. Personally, me as a broker, I don't even sell homes myself, and I know how to navigate a sale. I don't do that myself because I want there to be an agent between me and the person who's buying it, because you need that separation, because it's going to get ugly. Because nowadays attorneys get their hands on anything, and they want to beat you up for inspections. They want to beat up the contract. You may start a very friendly relationship with that buyer, but things are going to get ugly really soon. So you need that intermediary to kind of be that buffer. Because if a seller is a regular person who's nice most of the time, and the buyer gets ticked off about something and feels that the seller is lying to him about something, that situation can turn ugly really quickly. But if you have a level-headed, very, kind of like, how would I say, middle-of-the-road type of person in between, that solution can get handled very easily. So that's what you bring to the table, is that you're going to be the negotiator, an intermediary, the person who's going to keep things calm. Next thing we want to talk to our clients about is that we're not just going to show up to their listing and start taking pictures with our phone or with our pocket camera or anything like that. What we're going to do is we're going to take top-notch pictures, and pictures that are taken by a professional. So this is an example of some of the photos we've taken on our property. So you always want to make sure that they understand that photos are key, very important. They should also think about staging the home, because if it's vacant, it will show much better. Even people who are not vacant and they live in homes, they may want to get a professional to come in there and consult on how to lay their home out with the current furnishings they have. They may just rearrange their furniture, get rid of some things, and just make the home look like it's actually staged. You never know what you can do with the stuff you have already. We also want to talk about on this slide on how many people actually engage with our posts, because, for instance, we want a lot of people to our open house. And this particular open house that we had here, where you see a red little arrow, we had 20,000 people who we were able to reach with that one post. We had 7,000 actual engagements, over 7,000, with a $100 budget. And that means that we actually targeted that one perfectly. In that open house, I remember, because I was present at that open house, we had at least 20 people come in with no broker, no agent, which is like phenomenal. You definitely want to see that at every open house. As an agent, obviously you want to have them with no brokers, but the important thing is to get it noticed and get it seen. And this is exactly what we can do by the way that we handle our open houses and our marketing. So also you want to let them know that through our MLS reach, we're also feeding that information out to other IDX sites, which means that because we listed with our MLS, it's also going to be fed out to everywhere. Zillow, Trulia, Homes.com, everywhere that you could think of that has a real estate section, your home is going to be seen. Okay, you want to make sure that you understand that. You also want to explain to them that if you try to sell the home on your own, you're missing out on 90% of the buyers, because 90% of the home buyers work with a real estate agent. So if you're not working with an agent, especially a specialized agent in your area, you're missing out on about 90% of the buyers that are going to be buying homes in that area, which means you're missing out on 90% of the offers. Okay, we spoke about the open house. Showings and data. This is important because, you know, people are particular about who comes into their house, you know, and they should be. There's a lot of crazy people out there. And one other thing you may want to tell people is that, listen, if you're letting people into your home and you don't know if they're pre-qualified, these people can just be crooks coming to see what you have in your home and then waiting for you to leave so they can come and steal your stuff. Now, if you're working with a real estate agent, the real estate agents are making sure that these people are qualified. They're making sure that they're real buyers, because no real estate agent wants to work with someone who's wasting their time. And we also log everyone through showing time, which means that we make sure that we know who's coming to your house. There's no surprises as far as who was there at what time, and we can also monitor it so nobody comes in before a certain hour and after a certain hour. Okay, so these are important things that we want to make sure we make them understand. We can use a super lockbox to make sure that the lockbox only gives access during certain hours. We can exclude holidays if we want to. We do whatever we want. This is a slide on staging and explaining to them that the ROI in staging is huge. You know, staging really makes an impactful difference. As you can see here, there's a room that's shown not staged as opposed to being staged. Now, this one's staged virtually, which is obviously, you know, not as recommended as the real thing, but it still does help your online presence. So even if the client is opposed to staging and spending like a few $1,000s on that, try to convince them at least to do some virtual staging, which may cost maybe $100, $200, and is definitely a big improvement from just a regular picture. Okay, now this is explaining to them that we will only work with qualified buyers. So anyone who comes to your home is already going to be vetted through our in-house mortgage reps, or mortgage reps that have definitely a good reputation. We're not just going to bring people and say, look, we brought you someone. We definitely want to work with people who are qualified for the amount of your home. You know, if your home is $500,000, we're not bringing someone who's qualified for $400,000 and going to try to lowball you. We're only going to bring people who are in your price range. And that's pretty much it. And then this is how we get your home sold. You know, this is and then you start talking about you can talk about yourself a little bit more, because your personal information is not here. So you can say, you know what, I have 3 years experience, 5 years experience, 15 years experience, whatever you want to say. And, you know, I'd love to work with you. And then you could just ask the simple question. With my presentation that I'm giving you today, do you feel like you know enough information about my company and myself to work with me to get this home sold? And, you know, it's a really simple question. You're asking me, have I earned your business today? And they will easily say, yes, you have, or no, you know, I would still like to know more. And then you can answer any question they might have further that you may be in touch on. And I think if you just answer the questions correctly, give enough value, you know, the listing is going to be yours. You guys have any questions on what we covered so far? Because this is the last portion of our segment today, so I just want to make sure that I can answer anything. Did I say, were there any documents you guys need further clarification on?
You can go over the third-party authorization form.
The third party?
Explain that again to me.
Okay, so the third-party authorization form. Okay, the third-party authorization form. What this is a document that allows you to speak to the bank on behalf of your client. Because your client is paying you to basically handle everything from here on in. So you're not going to always say, hey, Mr. Client, can you jump on a phone call with me so we can call the bank? Hey, can you call the bank for me, Mr. Client? No, you want to call the client. You want to call the bank for your client. What you want to do is provide information on a weekly basis on how you can on how the short sale is going. So you want to get this filled out. You want to have their and keep in mind there's some sensitive information on here like social security numbers and things like that. So when you get this signed, executed, and sent over to the bank, make sure that either A, you keep this in a very secure place, or you get rid of it altogether, because you don't want to be responsible for having a document with someone's social security number and information in your file and that file goes missing. Okay? Make sure that you're using secure ways of sending this information over to the bank, and just make sure that the client understands that you're not going to be sharing this information with anyone else. Okay? Very important stuff. Definitely don't keep this in your file. What I tell the agents is that you keep two files. You keep a file for your listing, which is in the front desk, and then you keep a file for your short sale. The file for your short sale, you can have in there your tax returns, pay stubs, bank statements, and things like that. But you always want to make sure that that information, once you have it and sent over, you give it back, or you shred it. You just get rid of it. Make sure you're not shredding originals out. I'm shred the original tax returns and stuff like that. Always make sure that it's gone. When you close that transaction, make sure that file is completely returned, gone, because God forbid, we have a break-in or you guys lose the file and some of that information gets lost. It could be a big mess for your client. You don't want to be involved in that. Any other questions, guys? All right, good. Well, I thank everyone for tuning in today, and hopefully this information was useful. If you guys have any comments on what we spoke about today or any questions, please leave it down below. Don't forget, guys, we're always hiring, so if you guys are interested in learning more about Culture Estate, you can visit us at culture.estate. Or if you're an investor or buyer or seller and you want to start working with Culture Estate and you want to build a long-lasting relationship, please reach out to us, culture.estate, or you can call the office at 908-444-4066. Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation.